Hey everyone, Andrew here, Melbourne Superman. I'm really excited. I have, for the first time ever, now this is a visual medium, so you're probably all watching this on YouTube, or you might even be listening to this on the Kryptonian Chronicles, but I'm really excited. Those of you who have followed my journey know that the very first Superman costume I ever had, well, we call them Superman suits here, was made by Action Costumes, and that was so many years ago. I had two suits by them, and I'm here with the creator of Action Costumes, Mole, who has just like graced me with his presence. This is kind of like really awesome for me. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing really great. I'm so excited to be here, man. It's always a pleasure to deal with you. I mean, we all believe here that you are such an incredible talent in what you make, and we are so happy to be your partner. So it's very excited, like I recently told you, to be here. Um, and well, I'm really happy to be here as well. Sorry.
Oh no, that's great, man. Well, I'm very flattered. So thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a long time. Obviously, my love for Superman, and I remember the first suit that I ordered, from Action Costumes way back in the day was I think it was the '80s style suit. It's not the suit that I have now, and I knew that that was the suit that I wanted to get for my very first sort of real Superman suit because it was, I mean, it was just so amazing because I before that I had had the Halloween costume suits and everything but when I first got that suit, and I remember it came packed in this really amazing box. The box was like it had the Superman logo on it, and it had the box was basically made out of the material that the suit was made out of. And I remember just the boots themselves. It was just such a cool experience, and I don't think I could have asked for a better quality suit for my very first real quality Superman suit back in the day.
But it's amazing that you got that costume, because it was one of the, I don't know, maybe it was a really limited edition of maybe, I don't know if we reached 10 of them at that time. Because then we realized that it was really expensive to make that kind of boxes, and we couldn't produce them again.
Yeah.
But there you could be able to see all the feeling and the passion we put into that work, at that time that it was a pretty early prototype, that you remember, because you have the costume, but it value a lot because, I mean, it's a lot for us that you have it, in some way. Um, so for the people that are hearing me, you know that I'm Spanish speaking. I live in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and English isn't my native language. So maybe it will be a little bit hard for me to communicate, but here I am trying to do it. But about that costume, you got, that was, I think, around 2003, more or
Yeah.
less.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago, mate.
Very long time ago. Because I remember I ordered that suit probably a year or two after graduating high school. So it was like early days.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh man, the
It's
memories.
so funny how one. It's like it's part of the story of our business. It's
Yeah, well,
incredible.
that's it. It's been around so long. The only regret I have is that I don't have more pictures of myself in that suit. The only picture that I have in that suit is a Polaroid that some of you may have seen floating around, where I'm standing next to Barney the dinosaur, and funnily enough, the guy in the Barney the dinosaur costume was my dad. So,
It's so
uh,
cool.
it was a fun team up. So so Mo, let's talk about your story a little bit. So Mo, how did you get into suit making in the first place?
Well, first of all, I would like to introduce myself. Like, my name is Sebastian Molchasky, but I choose to use my nickname Mol. I'm the owner of Action Costumes, and I professionally developed my skills as special effects technicians, working in films, TV, advertising, and theater. I do special effects makeup, design, and realization of fantasy costumes, animatronics, scale models, dummies, hair pieces, and products mockups. From a very early age, I've seen all kind of science fiction, terror, adventure films, and television programs that I could get my hands on. I have always been a fan of those characters and universe, and of Star Wars and Superman above all.
Hmm.
My father was a plastic surgeon, and my mother a classical ballet dancer.
Wow.
Both science and art have always been in my blood.
Hmm.
It's like I'm actually in a kind of mix of that. This made me wonder how things work since I was very young, and led me to make experiments in electronics, chemistry, and electromechanics. Basically, I grew up making scale models with pharmaceutical boxes and inventing fantastic worlds with containers of silicone breeze prosthets while listening to the Beatles on my little pay record and helping my father in his doctor office. That's what I refer. That's why I refer that I'm a mix of all that. A mix of science and art in some way. At the age of 14, I decided that I was going to work as a special effects technician in movies, and when I was 17, I started to research where I could study that in Buenos Aires, where I live. I couldn't find any place to do it, So I decided to study all the specialties apart to combine them all by my own to be a special effects technician one day. So I remember that the first time I thought was, okay, first of all, you need to, the third thing I thought, was like, okay, first of all, you need how to draw characters, because it's the base of all. I mean, comics are the base of the films, and character and the draws in comics are the perspectives and all that are like, or the scales of them or proportions of them are one of the most important things to know about of characters. No? So, like I was telling you, at the age of 17, I started to research where I could study that in Buenos Aires, where I live. I couldn't find any place to do it, so I decided to study all the specialties apart to combine them all by my own to be a special effects technician one day. So I remember that the first thing I thought was, okay, first of all, you need to draw characters, like I was telling you recently. So I started to study comics draw with a well-known professor that made an amazing Argentinian comic called El Cazador.
Okay.
A year later, luckily, I found one of the first academies of special effects makeup where I started studying. Half a year later, I made a great effort, and the owner of that academy hired me to help him by giving the beginner level course, like a teacher. So when I was 18 years old, I started to work for him in the first real workshop I ever worked. That was really crazy because I was really young, and I used to go to a secondary school that it was an industrial school, and it was like a full day time at that when I used to go there. I used to get in like about 8 in the morning and out around 6 p.m. So after that, I used to go to the workshop of this guy to work with him. Sometimes I spent whole nights with him, and then even without sleeping, it was like 18 years old. I was mostly like an immortal, when you're that young.
Yeah.
And I used to like don't sleep during the weeks, some days. Just going to the workshop, spend all the night in the workshop working, and then going to the school again at the other day. Well, wow. Those kind of efforts that you used to make when you start something that you want to get in full someday, Well, that was a really nice experience. So then I went around searching for good places to study while I was having my first experience working by my own in special effects makeup for movies, TV, and video clips. In the year 2000, a friend of mine gave me a call and told me that there were a new .com website called mercadolibre.com. That is the same than eBay, but for Latin America right now.
Okay.
There was going to be an auction site for all Latin America and Spain. They wanted to meet me because he knew that I have a lot of knowledge about collectibles and hobbies. I was recently finishing my work of making the traditional special effects in an Argentinian movie as a department head for my first time. So I remember telling him that I never worked in an office before, so I really didn't know how to do it, because I used to work like a special effect technicians. That is maybe another thing, or is another thing, like completely different world maybe. That I wasn't that much interested on that because I want to continue working in special effects for movies, So he replied like, well, over the next week, you have to know that we will be receiving a complete container of Star Wars toys from Miami, and we will need someone to open it and tell us how to work with them in the collectors community for Argentina and Uruguay. I was like, oh, big silence, And I said, oh, I mean, I'm going to tour at what time? Okay, I'm there.
Nice.
And I imagined that container, full of toys, and it was like imagine the one that was opening those doors and grabbing all those toys, even if they were not going to be for me, Um, well, I worked there for almost a year as the category manager in collectors and hobbies. There, I learned a lot about e-commerce that was recently starting. At that time, it was the year 2000, more or less, or maybe in Argentina recently started. It was the great fever of the .coms, in the world.
Yeah.
So time passed by, and that website became the biggest company in Argentina and the most important Latin America action site of the world. It was really crazy. Wow. And it was a really crazy decision to me to quit that job, because it was really nice to work there. And I had an incredible future if I stayed there. Actually, some friends of mine that are still working there, they got millionaire, because they have auctions of that company. Just try to mention that company, at that time, they were like 767, people working. And right now it might be like 3,000, and they are all around Latin America and Spain. And like they manage incredible huge budgets. It's the bigger company of Argentina, and maybe of some other places in South America as well.
Yeah, wow.
But it wasn't my future. It wasn't the things I when you have that feeling that you have to go through another path, and I just quit it, and even if I have good friends there and I still speaking with them and I have a good relation, I just dedicated my life to what I love, the special effects and fantasy costumes, what I make up today. I know it could be a millionaire there, really, I could be, but it wasn't the future, It's like I'm such a kind of another guy, and I feel millionaire making this kind of stuff, It makes. I think we spoke about that someday, but in some way, when you use your passion for making things, you feel like a millionaire, or at least I. Well, that, like I was telling you recently, that was one of the greatest experiences in my life so far, but I always wanted to travel as well, around the world, mostly to America and Europe. So I saved a lot of money, bought a plane ticket to New York, grabbed my bag, and started my trip along with that last 6 months, more or less,
Right.
It was practically one of the best parts of my life, for sure. When I came back to VA, I remember a huge economical depression. A lot of businesses were shutting down, and there was no work anymore. Argentina is a difficult country between the economy, if you speak about the economy and all that. But I don't like to speak about politics. I'm not that kind of people.
No, that's fair.
So I used my knowledge of vintage toys and started buying Argentinian toys that were made in the 80s and 90s under American licenses and selling them all around the world. Half a year later, when I arrived from my trip, I remember I started working again in the film industry. Meanwhile, I kept my vintage toys online. That was really hard, because that when because you're an actor and you work in movies, and when you sometimes it's like full time,
Yeah.
and I have that extra time, But
Absolutely.
Well, at that time I was working in a very low budget science fiction movie. I was the special effects makeup department head. We were shooting in the set of a spaceship while the worst economical crisis was starting outside. That was really crazy.
Yeah.
Just kept all the money of the people, and there were angry citizens everywhere looking for their money back. One of the worst economical moments of Argentina was starting.
Yeah.
I'm telling you this because it's part of the way or the excuse of why we start all this in some way. So all the work in the film industry just stopped for like a year and a half, more or less. Then I started working full time in the vintage toy store until I got a job in the most important special effects studio of practical effects and stunts of Latin America. It was called Effects Stunt Team. They were about to start a big TV show for HBO, and they needed a special effects makeup laboratory. So I was in charge of opening this lab for them, hiring the technicians, and making the special effects makeup for the HBO TV show and the most important movies, commercial, and TV shows at that time in Argentina.
Wow.
Then I gave the vintage toy store business to my sister and to a friend of mine, with whom I was working as a partner for some time. Meanwhile, I was working in a serial killer TV show. My friend and my sister had the amazing idea of starting them to make costume replicas for fans and collectors for all around the world.
Okay.
I remember when they came to me and told me about this crazy idea of producing fantasy costumes and stop selling vintage toys. I thought that it was the perfect combination, of the special effects technicians I am and what I learned of e-commerce working on that online auction website. So as I knew how to make these fantasy costumes, I started to help them to make the first Superman costume prototype. That was, I think, near the one you get, more or less.
Way back
when you got. One of these costumes was the one we were speaking about that. It was, well, nothing, sorry. What was I speaking about? Okay. 1 year later, I quit my show in that Fixton team studio, and I opened my own special effects makeup workshop with a very good friend of mine. It was called Efecto Cerebro, which means brain effects.
Okay.
I got back in the business. I thought that it has to be like a funny name, We are the people that comes that arrive to the set with the cats, like this.
Yeah, right.
Funny, in some way, and it was great. Then I got back in the business of vintage toys by my own and continued to work with fantasy costumes as well with my sister and partner. Argentina is a very difficult country, like I told you before, and sometimes people need to have two shots, Anyway, I worked with my ex-partner for about 2 years in the special effects workshop, and then she decided to cut the partnership and continue with her own way and dedicate to puppets. That is what she loves, and she has an incredible talent for that. She's a great friend of mine up today. So I continued with Efecto Cerebro by my own, and at the same time, I was working with my sister and my friend selling costumes. But then my sister, who was studying at the university for being a lawyer, just finished her career and sold me her part in the costume business because she wanted to work as an attorney. At the same time, my friend had a personal problem and went back to work in his family business. That was a really shame for me. So, So from there, I continued with my own special effects workshop and fantasy costume store. At that time, I remember I thought I had to put a better name for the company and start a new, fresh way, So then is why when I changed it, I changed the name for Action Costumes.
Yep.
Today we mostly work with action costumes than in the special effects industry. We went through a really dark time past year because the COVID and the pandemic, and we had to close the business. But now we are back in with tons of new ideas and a lot of orders from clients from all around the world, and we are really so happy to be here again.
It's so exciting. Yeah, I'm very excited that you're back. It was a very cool moment when I saw that you guys were coming back. I was like, oh, this is great, because you do make really, really great stuff. Because obviously on your website there's Superman stuff, there's the Batman stuff, there's Star Wars stuff that you've done. I remember always looking at the Emperor's the Emperor Guard's costume, like the red and the I don't know why those always just maybe it looks like a red cape, I don't know, but I always like those guys. What's that?
That's me under that costume. The
royal no kidding.
It's me under. Yeah, that style. It's me as well.
Amazing. Oh yeah, there's so many cool things on offer there on that website, which of course we'll link to and everything. So, when you make, say, a Superman costume, right? So, how did you figure out how to make them so accurate? Because your suits are made. I mean, you have a bunch of different types of suits. Like you have the 80s style, you have the silver edition, you have the golden edition, and of course the golden edition being the most accurate suit that you have in terms of the screen. So how did you learn how to make them so accurate?
Well, this has been a mix of a great research, a good eye for details, and the collaboration of tons of fans and collectors from all around the world. To be honest, one of our first important collectors that we had as a client for many years was Mr. Chris King, that you probably heard about him. He's a really important collector from England. He has a great collection of costumes and sent us a lot of accurate information from the real Superman costumes at that time. The information that I think he used to share with Jim Bowers from Cape Wonder.
Sure, I love that podcast, yeah.
That's amazing. These two great persons help us a lot to get these accurate costumes. By the way, we had both of them, like our clients, and we made a lot of costumes for them. Besides, we used to work with people that had access to an original costume for an exhibition in Spain. from where we could be able to know the measures and every detail of original costume of the first movie. Sorry, of the original costume of the first movie. Apart of this, I personally had access to a real Christopher Reeve Superman costume in the San Diego Comic Con of 2018. It was amazing to see that. It was a flying costume. Cool. Wow. It has like the hood that is part of the tunic, you know, to hang up to make it fly, you know.
That's great.
It was, well, from which I add the final details to our silk. I mean, I used to like I have it in front of me. I took a lot of notes, you know, I compare fabrics and I used that information to add the final details to our silver and golden edition costumes to make them the most accurate, or try to be the most accurate in the world. Besides, I was able to check that fabrics we use for the super and golden edition costume we produce have the same color and shape than the original ones, like every other detail you can find in it.
Wow.
But it was like a mix of a help of a lot of people from around the world, but mostly with the help of Chris King and Shim Bowers help as well. But I think that Chris King gave us most of the information to make them, because we were like making costumes for him, and he always wanted another one better and better and better and much more accurate. And that was a mix of him and a little bit of Shim Bowers. And a mix of this person that worked for us into the workshop, that had the access for the costume in Spain, and a lot of recommendations from people from all around the world. That is really great to hear the opinion of the way of thinking of a costume like this one, you know, from all the people. I mean, we are always open to hear new ideas. You know?
And that's brilliant. Like, I've not ever spoken to Chris, but Jim Bowers I've spoken to a couple of times. I mean, you know, just kind of in passing, you know, I think he's wonderful. Him and Jay on the Cape Wonder podcast, the Cape Wonder website. I mean, if there are people listening to this who have not checked out Cape Wonder, check it out. I mean, he's got so many resources. I mean, like, to hear him talk about some of the people that he's met, some of the things that he's seen, it's really like he's been around. I mean, it always makes me laugh, because whenever he refers to, like, Richard Donner, rest in peace, or Christopher Reeve, rest in peace, he always calls them Dick or Chris. And it's like, you can just tell that there's that level of familiarity with what he's talking about. It's a really cool thing to listen to. So that's really awesome. So
he's part of the story of Superman for sure.
Yeah. I mean, he has in his own right kept that legacy going on really a lot. I mean, he's got his finger in so many different pies. He's great. Now, what goes into making a Superman suit? Like, what's the process like from start to finish? Just a couple of highlights and how you make the suit, what it is that you do with it.
Okay.
Without giving away your secrets.
No worries about that. No, in some way, there aren't any secrets right now with internet. You know, you can find everything in the net. You know, in some ways, like that. I used to speak with some people that work in some special effects, other workshops that work a part of mine. You know, like people that have other their own workshops as well. And I used to have a really I have a good communication with my partners. You know, in some way, and we all used to say that there aren't any secrets like we used to have, like in the 90s, you know, or in the 2000s. There aren't any secrets at all right now, because you can find all in the net.
Yeah,
it's like
true.
But thanks anyway for being considerate. Well, there are a lot of people involved in the making of these great costumes that make this magic possible. You know, basically we can divide them in two kinds: the ones that are out of the workshop and the ones that are in-house. You know, the people that are out of the workshop, are designers, shoemakers, goldsmiths, clothes makers, and hat makers. In the workshop, you will be able to find talented people as well, such as special effects technicians and wardrobe producers. We can continue making costumes parts in the special effects workshop using the Crisis. We will continue, and we used to make costume parts in the special effects workshop using the Crisis materials from the film industry as well. We make from baking form Batman coats of the 60s to Michael Keaton's complete costumes armors from the 80s. Of course, we produce the battles and all the belts of the Superman and Batman costumes as well. And we are about to start having a life-size display for sale pretty soon.
Very cool.
Anyway, Anyway, all the items we produce are finally supervised by myself to see if they fit into the quality we like to give to our clients.
Okay.
If they don't, we correct them. If they still don't look good, we put the costume parts apart and we replace it for a new one. This makes us lose a lot of items and money, but it assures us a great quality to our customers. That's one of the most important things for us, because we think that the goal of our store is to provide a costume service, not only selling costumes. This means that we work hard until we get the satisfaction of our clients, and we even replace or make new parts if there is something wrong in relation to the size. And this doesn't mean that we can make a mistake with the size, but sometimes there are some people that could take their measures wrong, and if we don't detect that mistakes on time and make the costume part that doesn't fit them well, we will just replace that part, because we really strongly believe that, not all the people know how to take their measures. And they don't have to know how to do it in some way, except of professionals like you, that you're pretty used for many years of making it. But there are some rookie people that just love Superman and want to have a costume, or Batman, or some Star Wars costume that we make. And isn't there? We used to think that isn't their fault if they make a mistake on the measures, So part of our job is just to get the satisfaction of the client. If the costume part that doesn't fit them well, even if the fault is from the client that didn't make the measures that accurate, we want to get the satisfaction of the client. So we just change the part, like that, and we send it again to them.
That's amazing. And, for those of you who are thinking about ordering from Action Costumes, Mole sends a great, because I think it's the same measuring guide that I had both times that I ordered. It's so detailed. So even if you don't know how to take measurements, it's so you will see exactly where to measure, how to measure. Of course, you may make a mistake, of course, because we are all human, of course. But Action Costumes makes it so easy to really figure out. Because I have worked with many suit makers myself, and probably your measurement guide would be probably one of the most detailed that I've ever seen. So.
Oh, wow, that makes me feel so proud.
No, well, it's a testament, because your suit probably fits me better than any other suit that I own. It's just, it accentuates really good things, and I say that to people all the time because of how detailed the measurements were. So that's just really awesome.
Thanks.
So, no, that's thank you. And what are so okay? So I've had two of the suits. I had originally the '80s deluxe version. I have currently the silver edition, and there's also now the golden edition. So what are some of the differences, the main differences in each of those suits?
Well, like you say, we have three different versions of the Superman costumes that use Christopher Reeve.
Mm-hmm.
All are high quality made, but with different prices depending on their accuracy with the original one. Superman costume 80s style, the one you got on first, it's a standard edition that is made with the best materials of the market and has an amazing quality for what it costs. What it means is that it doesn't matter if it is the basic edition or the standard one. We used to put in it the best materials we found, the best quality materials we found. Maybe it's a little bit clean in relation to the shape if you compare it with the deluxe editions. But it's a really high quality one. The emblem of the chest of this edition of the 80s style is made in flock and attached by a worm system. The cape's emblem is made in gabardine with the black line made in flock as well.
Okay.
This is a very nice edition, even if it is a standard one, like I told you recently. In relation to the Superman Silver Edition costume, it's a super accurate deluxe one, and it's made with the most accurate lycra approved by the best collector from the US and the UK. And we are speaking about Chris King and Shim Bowers, because when we reach that fabric, they get annoyed about that, at that time. So that's why we continue using it. And luckily, we bought a lot of that fabric.
Nice.
we found a lot. Recently, we found a lot, and it was like, wow, like a kind of gift,
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, the Golden Edition costumes has the best fabrics and collectors ever seen. Sorry, the colors ever seen. The blue, red, and yellow fabrics have the same texture and color as the original costume. The belt is the best replica ever seen, as the cape and all the details of the costume. This will be the final replica for the biggest collectors, I think. After we try to get that quality, to make the collectors think that they will get the final edition, with that one. That they will not need to continue searching for that. At least the Superman Christopher Reeve edition. Maybe they will have to start collecting other actors contemporary than the Christopher Reeve. But the idea is to give the collector the final search there. All of these deluxe costumes have a sewn chest emblem and little super deluxe details. Besides, all of these deluxe costumes are made having in mind the original measurements taken from our real costumes of the first movie. Both the standard and deluxe editions can be tailor-made to the size of the client or to the size of Mr. Christopher Reeve.
Oh, that's cool. I wish I was taller.
You're fine.
Oh, that's great. And folks, I can tell you, so as detailed as I tried to be in the review for the silver edition costumes, and obviously all the pictures of me in the suit that are out there, nothing does it justice more than seeing it in person, because you look at this suit and it is the most beautiful shade. I liken the suit. Okay, so when I was in sixth grade, I think I was 11 years old, I went to Hawaii for the first time, and I went out on this excursion with my parents called the Trilogy, and it was just a snorkel trip, and they took us out to the middle of basically this area in the Pacific, and it was the bluest water I had ever seen. And the captain of the ship said, "Go into the water, take off your goggles, open your eyes. It won't sting your eyes, but look down, and it'll be the bluest blue, the most beautiful blue you've ever seen." And I did that, and it's very similar. I mean, that's the best way to describe the blue of the silver edition, the Superman suit. It's just so beautiful. It's like nothing that I've ever seen. It's fantastic. So
That's such a nice and incredible way of seeing that. It's amazing. It's amazing. Thanks a lot for that comparison.
It's just a fantastic shade of blue. And so, how long does each suit take to make?
Well, it depends on each costume and how complex the costume is. For example, the Superman 80 style costume takes 15 days to be made after we get the measures of the client.
Okay.
The Superman costume silver and golden editions take 30 days, and all of the boots 30 days as well.
Okay.
Most of the costumes we produce are made under a previous order. So that costumes and boots used to take 30 days to be made, with some exceptions, such as the Superman costume 80 style, which takes 15 days to be made.
Okay.
In the case of a costume that we never made before, it could take from about 2 to 3 months to be made after we have the measures of the client.
Sure.
But more or less, those are the timelines.
Okay, so like 2 to 4 weeks. That's pretty good. And I had to ask, do you ever make? Because if I had your skill and talent, do you ever make suits for yourself just to have them? Just like, do you have a wardrobe of Superman suits or Star Wars costumes or anything?
Well, I will love to make that. You know how collectors we are. If you have one of the first one you love, you will want to have all of them later. I'm a little bit afraid about that, because I think that isn't the correct time right now to start collecting. But I know one day I will, for sure. But to be honest, we have a big workshop, but we never have enough space.
Yeah.
I really hope someday I can have enough space for my own collection, I hope one day I can have my own showroom full of Star Wars and Superman displays. That's one of the things I will love most, for sure. And with and imagine that, all those characters. And maybe it's a classical way to think of you, but I love trains as well. And I would love to have that in my showrooms and a scale train model, in some way.
Cool.
I don't know. a home theater. Well, I think it isn't the correct time for me to think about that,
Mm.
but I will for sure in a few years, for sure.
Yeah, that's I can definitely relate. I mean, between the pop vinyl figures and all the collectibles I have, and I have like 12 or 13 Superman suits, I can definitely attest to. I wish I had more space to display them all. Oh
It's
man,
not.
no, there's just never enough room. And
Yeah.
so, okay, so what's the future now? So you're back, you're kind of in business again. What's the future for Action Costumes?
Well, we continue improving all the costumes we produce, all the times. Even if it is an old costume, we continue improving it constantly.
Mm.
There are a lot of new different costumes about to come. And in a really short time, we will have the first Christopher Reeve full body statue made in our studio for sale, and with the mostly the same measurements than Christopher Reeve.
Wow.
And you have the exclusive about that because we didn't spoke about that before. Sorry.
Yeah.
This display will be sold like the Superman statue 80 style, and will come in white and in a real skin color finish made with airbrush.
Wow.
It will be made of resin. That's why it's like a basic style one or a standard one. That's why we call it 80 style. We have the idea we have the project of making a full life-size Christopher Reeve statue making silicone in the future, and that will be like a deluxe one.
Yeah.
With hair and all that. We know how to make that. It's pretty expensive, so we started with this. That is like a commitment or an order from a client. And we recently ended the mold cast of all of it. We are about to make the positive copy of Christopher Reeve. So if you like, maybe in the future, we would like to share some of that information for you if you like to share it as well.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Besides, I personally want to explore into making complete, like I recently told you. Well, no, sorry. Sorry. I personally want to explore into making complete full body silicone costumes of creatures and silicone masks as well one day. We really believe that that could be a really great market. Like, yes. I don't know, predators, aliens, things like that. Maybe the mold of Hulk. I don't know, things like that. A part of the other costumes or the regular costumes. And I really hope that someday we can produce these full-size silicone statues as well. Besides, that's why I'm studying right now digital sculpture or ZBrush to be able to print much more high detail species in the future and cast them into the workshop. We can look to other side, even if I love practical effects up to date, the 3D printer is into the workshop, into every workshop. So we have to start working with it as soon as we can, And I think that will give us like much more details in everything we make. So in everything we sculpt, mostly print it, and then the idea is to cast it and make it in silicone, or if it is a prop part of a costume, print it in the 3D printer and make the cast and start selling those parts, But I'm studying ZBrush or digital sculpture because I obviously don't want to recast anything. I would like to just make it from scratch, like we always do, Yeah. So that's why I want just to research and to study and to do everything I can about digital modeling or digital sculpture. That is what I am right now.
Amazing. That's so much coming up. That's really awesome. I can't wait to see how that all unfolds. That's exciting. And so I guess my final question for you, and this is one that I also have to know, is I guess what is if you have one, what is your favorite Superman movie?
I like them all. I have to say I like them all, but the first one, Superman the movie, I think it came to me in the correct time. I was a child. I was really young. I had like 3 or 4 years old at that time. When I saw that man flying, it was like, come on, man, that's amazing. And like, how everybody says like he made us believe that a man can fly
Yeah.
for real, you know. And about that is really crazy. I have a crazy story about that, or a really funny story from when I was a child. Because I used to ask for my mother for my birthday to give me, you know, like a gift, a Superman costume.
Sure.
But she went, obviously she took me to the cinema, you know, to see the movie. I think that she also believed or make that movie believe my mother that a man can fly, because she was afraid of me of buying a Superman costume, and she was afraid of me to jump from the balcony believing I can fly, you know.
Yeah.
And she always, I was just, I mean, the little fight between each other was like, "Mom, please, I want a Superman costume." "No, you will never have a costume of a superhero that could fly. You will be the Batman." But I don't want to be the Batman. I want to be Superman. No, but you, no, that's pretty dangerous. You know, for you, you will be the Batman. I will be the Batman. I love Batman.
Oh, that's funny.
I love Batman up today. I love Batman. You know, not that much like Superman, but
Yeah.
they are great superheroes. Well, both of them. But it was really funny, and I think that you know how that things work. Maybe if you don't have the money to buy all the clothes you wanted when you were a child, or you couldn't get something to you think you complete your childhood. You know, is like we used to like. I'm a middle-aged guy, you know, and you used to try to find those things when you are older, you know. And I think in some way, like I couldn't have this Superman costume when I was a child. I started producing them as soon as I could. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Oh, that's great. Yeah, well, look, I think I had that probably argument with my mom too, because I always asked for a Superman costume, and I'm sure she was afraid that I was going to try to jump off the roof or something. I might have. Maybe I did. I can't remember, and that's probably why I can't remember. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I'm so glad that we were able to do this, and I can't wait to put it out there.
Thank you. You know, it's a big pleasure for us. Like I told you before, it's a big pleasure for us to be working with such a talented man, such a talented cosplay. And it's always amazing to be in touch with people from other cultures. You know, that's one of the things I love of this work. You know, it's always amazing to be in touch with people from other cultures that have the same passion than you. You know, than me. It's like to share such a message that Christopher Reeve gave us, you know, in his life, in his movies, and all that, you know, in some way, the American way, and I don't know that freedom and that possibilities of making the right things. I don't know. It's like something that I really love to share with people like you. I think that is the correct message to leave to or to give to all the people, you know. And I know that in some way, one of the things that we love about your work, that in every picture you put a life message of, I don't know if that's correct, you know, but you give an extra that is what Christopher Reeve, I think, he tried to make in some way, you know, to communicate something good, something that inspire us to be a good man, a good people, you know, and to make the right stuff, to feel fine and to make the world better, you know, in some way.
And you know what, we all have that in there, and I just hope, I wish, I look forward to the day that everybody sort of realizes that they have it within themselves to give that to the world, just as much as Christopher Reeve and the rest of the cast and crew of Superman did. So fingers crossed that day will come faster than a speeding bullet.
I hope so. I hope so. Well, it's a really pleasure to be with you talking. Thanks a lot for giving me this time. And I think that we will continue making really great stuff together.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, my friend.